So, welcome back to You Tuned In. Uh, this is episode 3, and thank you guys for tuning in again. Last time we talked about bravery, and we talked about the true definition of bravery or fearlessness, and how the Bible describes fearlessness as someone who is perfected in love, which can be the opposite of what one would think when they're thinking about approaching life from a sense of bravery. And as I talked about previously, we're gonna continue to follow the lessons from the ring and the things that it taught me. So if you're just now popping in and this is the first episode you're hearing, we've been doing this kind of series on what I learned from the time God told me to watch The Lord of the Rings. So we're just gonna keep on that track. So as we talk about bravery and kind of finish up with that piece of it, I find the best segue is going into Samwise. Oh, Samwise, Samwise the Brave is what they call him. You won't be able to convince me if you've seen these movies. You won't be able to convince me that Sam is not like the all-time best. There's a lot of characters that people like, but for me, it's all about Sam. Um, the way that this kind of manifested itself to me as I've been thinking about it is in our own lives, right? Because we're with ourselves 24/7. We know our thoughts, we know our struggles, we know all the things that we go through in our own lives. There is almost no way to not view yourself as Frodo, right? You're the man on the cover. You're the person on the cover. You're the one that has the burden of carrying the ring. That's the way, that's our natural thought process because we know what we struggle with, we know what we deal with, and we naturally just view it as us holding the ring. We think we're Frodo, but I don't actually think that we're Frodo. I don't believe that that is ever what we were intended to be. It's the most natural process because we're the ones living our lives. And yes, we have times of Frodo like scenarios where nobody can carry it for us. We have to carry it ourselves. But as we navigate life, our intention really should be to be Sam. Uh, because, whether if you've seen the movies, then you know what I'm about to say. If you haven't seen the movies, I'm going to tell you to stop listening to me right now because I'm about to just blow it all up in this moment. So if you haven't seen the movies, I'm going to pause for a second to give you a second to stop talking to me and listening to me, and maybe skip over this part. Um, if you've seen the movies, you know that Frodo really isn't the hero. He loses. You know what I mean? At the end of everything that he did, at the end of this battle, we see Frodo goes into the door to the gate of Mordor where the fire's there, the flames are there, and he has every opportunity to simply take that ring and to drop it in the flames. But he doesn't. He turns around and as Sam begs him and pleads with him, he turns around and he says, "No, the ring is mine." And he puts it on his finger. The only reason why this story ends well is because of Smeagol being there to attack him and bites off the finger that literally carries the ring. And, you know, all praises, everything goes the way that it's supposed to go. And Frodo is rescued from the power of the ring. But the truth is he lost. He did not win. And I'm not saying that to spite Frodo. I'm not saying that to point or cast some sort of negative light. The truth of the matter is that Frodo can't win. And I know this to be true because as you look throughout the things that he went through to get the ring to that point, he gave every last drop of himself. One of the reasons why I absolutely love Sam is because of his relentless pursuit to making sure that Frodo is set up with whatever he needs for the journey, whether that's something as small as like the food, managing it, rationing it, giving Frodo food when he himself was going to go hungry for a little bit longer, making sure that he's like, you're the main character. I'm not him. You're the main character. I'm just trying to get you where you need to go for the betterment of the world, but really for the betterment of you. If you don't pay very much attention to it, Samwise was Samwise even before the journey started. He was sitting outside of the window as Frodo first receives the ring, not dropping eaves, but just always with his eye ever vigilant as Frodo's gardener to, are you okay? Man, if we could only be that way, if you could pick somebody in your life to be that way about, are you okay? But my favorite example of this, and me getting back on track, my favorite example of this is um, in kind of those last moments before they get actually into the door, the gate of Mordor. And he's walking up the hill. Both of them are walking up the hill, and Frodo just collapses. He just drops. And Samwise is looking at him, and Samwise has been every step that Frodo took, Samwise took. So if Frodo is exhausted, naturally to assume Samwise is exhausted. He hasn't carried the ring, but he's exhausted. And as Frodo concedes in his mind that he's going to go ahead and die there, I don't have it. I don't have any more gas. I got nothing left. I'm going to die here. He concedes this in his mind, and Samwise looks at him and says, I can't carry the ring for you, but I can carry you. Picks this man up and carries him up the rest of the way to the door. I point that out because it is clear to me that whatever Frodo did have, the goal was still the same. He still knew he's supposed to make it to that door. He just simply could not. He exhausted whatever reserves he had left. He ran through them. He had no more. And then by the time that he does get in there, because someone else had to literally carry him, he still fails. He cannot win. And how does this apply to us, right? Frodo loses by design. It's the exact same type of situation with us in Jesus Christ. No matter how passionate you are, no matter how diligent that you are to doing all the right things, kind of like Apostle Paul said, he said, concerning the righteousness that's within the law, it was blameless. You can do all of the right things and try your absolute best. But when you see the vast delta between who you are and who God has called you to be, who you are and what God requires, who you are and what God is going to eventually bless, then you realize, man, I wasn't designed to win. And you weren't. The plan of salvation comes into place because if you could do it alone, you would have never needed Jesus. Jesus is the gap. He makes the difference. So as I orient myself in my own life, I should not be focused on being Frodo because I know that Frodo can't win. The basic premise of what was going to happen in those movies was going to happen all along. They were going to be successful. You've got all these things conspiring together to push them towards that point. It's the same way concerning our lives. We know that all things work together for good to them who love God. Those who are called to love God are called according to his purpose. If you love God and you were called according to his purpose, even the hard things that happen to you, we know that they work together for your good. They work to further the kingdom of the gospel. But if I am Frodo, there's this time where Sam is trying to have a conversation with Frodo about not seeing things the way that he needs to see them. And Frodo is telling him, I don't know why I lashed out at you this way. I don't know why I interacted with you this way. And Sam looks at him and he says, I do. It's the ring. Right? Because previously to that, Sam is trying to tell Frodo something. He's trying to help Frodo understand something. And Frodo completely jumps down his throat. And he tells him, he says, this is my burden to bear. This is my burden to carry, not yours, mine. And so much of the time we walk around with this main character energy. And what we don't know that we're doing is we're pushing away the only person who can really be the hero. We're pushing away the only source that can really help us and trading it for someone who can't help us. So many times, Sam begged Frodo, get rid of Smeagol. I've heard him talking. I've seen his plans. He conspires to kill us. Get rid of him. Get rid of him. Get rid of him. But by and by, Frodo just keeps uh, bringing along this source of pain and destruction, really, because that source promises him something. A couple of things, really. One of them is more subtle, but the one thing that it promises him is it promises him um, direction. I know how to get you to the place you want to go. Nobody else knows the way I go. The orcs don't know the way I go. I can successfully get you to the place that you're trying to go. I'm offering you direction. How many times has that happened to us where God Himself, the Spirit of the Lord, wants to give us direction, but instead of fasting and praying, instead of being quiet enough in our own lives and actually going and hearing what God's trying to say, we live our lives based on this external conversations and outside counsel that comes to us. And really, I think that happens because of the second reason that Frodo keeps him around, the more concealed thing that he offers. And he offers understanding. And Frodo identifies with that. Smeagol has spent years with the ring. He knows the way that it feels. He knows the weight of it. He knows the burden of it. He knows what it turns him into. And so he has this very unique relationship to this other person who is also bore what he bore. You ever heard misery loves company? This is counterintuitive, but it's like a lot of the time we will identify with someone who struggles the same way that we struggle. If I'm going through something, if I am experiencing a flaw or a break in my character or something in my life that God wants to change, if I'm not real careful, I'll look around and I'll be surrounded by counselors who have also experienced that same thing, who will be tender to my plight, which I don't think is wrong. I think you should have someone around who understands, which is why Jesus Christ, subject to like passions as we are, but Jesus didn't sin. Finding someone who can empathize with you, but not enable you to stay in the mud is an art. You see, Sam was really empathetic towards him, but he wasn't going to get down in the mud with him. He called him out. I've watched you in the night. You pet this thing. You sit with your sin. But Smeagol will say, oh, he wants to take it. Smeagol will say, you know how it feels. And so as you look at this concept of the position that Frodo has put himself in because he's alienating himself because he's got this main character energy. When in reality, Samwise is the guy that really he should have been patterning himself after, and really who we should pattern ourselves after. Find somebody to help. Oh my goodness, Jesus Christ is the only main character we will ever have. He is the main character. If you're ever living your life and you look around at it and you start paying attention to whether it's your accolades, whether it's the things that you feel like you've achieved, and I got some friends that have achieved and done some really great things, or whether it's the opposite, whether it is things that you have done that have ruined your life. You've made choices, you've made decisions, and every time you look around, every day you are faced with the weight of the choices that you made. In both of those scenarios, you've got to understand you are not the main character. There's been times in my life where I've struggled and I've been going through the pit and I've been feeling really bad about something or other. And as I've struggled through that, I've gone to go find my secret closet and my place to pray. And during that, God has told me someone else that needed help, almost without fail. I'll fall down on my knees and I'm like, Lord, I'm in this place and I don't see a way out. I don't know what to do. Please tell me, please help me. And all of a sudden somebody's name will come to my mind. Brother such and such. I'm like, okay, pray for him. And I'll pray for him. And as I'm praying for him, God will reveal things to me. He's struggling. Call him. And I will call him. And sure enough, by and by, they're struggling. And then I try to offer whatever I can in the moment of my desperation, which is just a friend, just to, what part of this can I carry? And I'll notice every time without fail, as I start to help them carry what they're carrying, man, I just forgot all about what I was carrying, and God's worked it out because he was always going to work it out. That's the trick the devil doesn't want you to know, is he was always going to work it out because you're not the main character. It's never been about you. We like to sing these songs all the time, and don't get me wrong, I love Christian music, I love gospel music, but sometimes when you listen to it, I have this rub with it because it feels like a lot of the gospel music is all about me. Oh, Jesus, you loved me so much. You care for me. You chased me to the ends of the earth. You You follow after me. And I'm just like, hey, man, when are we going to let's get to the worshiping part. Let's go back there. Yes, I'm thankful for what your goodness and your benevolence and your majesty brings to me as a recipient, a benefactor of the deity that you are. But when I sing and praise and worship, I want to pretty much tell you, I know you're the main character. And all of this is going to go the way that you want it to go. And so as I orient myself to trying to be more like Sam, I'm going to end up with something. I was talking to a buddy of mine. A friend of mine named Landon. After the last podcast, he reached out and said, I had to call you. I had to call you because I used to watch these movies over and over again in high school. And I had several people tell me that they have watched these movies on repeat. And I've started to watch them on repeat, actually. And he said, I've watched them so much and they have navigated how I've started to handle some situations by pointing back to the scripture. And this buddy that I'm talking about has had very, very similar experiences to me in life. It's almost uncanny. He's had very, very similar experiences to me in life. And he started talking about a lens. And he said, really, if you've never been through something, you don't have that lens. And when he said that, it just like struck this chord in my mind. Because I used to do photography. And when I used to do photography, I used to want to be like these really great photographers in Colorado that I knew about. And I'd see their pictures and I'm thinking, how do you do that? How do you get to this spot? And I started hanging out with them. And what I found very, very quickly upon hanging out with them is that they just had different things than I had. I started watching how they would be able to create such a level of focus on whatever they were trying to capture and tell such a story with one single shot. And they started telling me about like aperture. And I won't get into a whole bunch of like, photography terms, but the basic premise is they had gear that I didn't have. I was wanting to achieve a certain look or a certain feel, and it wasn't just the skill. It's not just about the gear. They had to have the skill to know how to do what they were trying to do. But they had a certain lens, and they would tell me this lens right here is $1,500. I'm thinking $1,500. I'm not about to buy no $1,500 lens. And they say, oh, well, that one's cheap. And you start thinking about it. Once you get this lens, you're able to do things with that exact same camera you had before that you've never been able to do. You just did not have the capacity to. The thing about understanding that you're not the main character, it brings about this level of patience. And when I say patience, I don't mean waiting. I think all the time when we read in the scripture, we hear the word patience, and brethren will say, don't pray for patience. You pray for patience, God will send you a trial. Patience is not just waiting for something to be over. Patience is the unwavering expectation of deliverance and that God's plan is better than yours. Yes, it includes waiting, but you're not just sitting there tapping your feet and throwing a fit saying, when are you coming? You are patiently looking and you are expectantly waiting for God to arrive. That's what patience is. And the scripture says that patience, if you have that, if you're able to put that on, like this thing works experience. Experience equals the lens. Like there's things that I've gone through in my life, and while I was going through them, oh man, I just absolutely hated them. I hated going through those things. But as I went through those things in life, I found myself coming out on the other side of those things with a different ability than I had before because I could see it differently. It's just like if anybody who has a kid, you're going to know immediately what I'm saying is when you have a child, you automatically start leaning into the understanding of the fatherhood of God and his love way more than you did before you had the child. Because now you have a different lens. You're able to see things differently. As you go through a really hard trial, as you go through dirt, as you go through tough things that in the moment seem terrible, you come out of it with this experience, with this lens. Now you can put that on your camera and say, I see what's happening here. I see what's going on. I can watch it. And the scripture says that experience works hope. The better lens you have, the more tools you have in your toolkit, the more hope you have. And it's like everything that Frodo signed up for, Samwise was right there next to him signing up for that same thing. There's a scene in this that makes me cry, and anybody that knows me knows that I cry in movies, and that's cool. But there's this scene that makes me cry because Frodo finally realizes that he can't trust anybody around him. I can't trust anybody around me. I can't trust anybody around this ring because they're not impervious to the pull and the draw of it. They can't do it. And as he tries to leave, he tries to go over on the other side. And he's in this boat And Samwise, he doesn't tell Sam he's leaving because he knows Sam will just follow him. And as he's in this boat and he's heading away in this different direction, Sam takes off. He finds that he's left. He's ran from wherever the original starting point was, and he's to the water and he's calling out to Frodo. And Frodo has no intention of turning around and picking him up. And he says, "I'm sorry, Sam. I'm leaving." And Sam starts treading out into the water. And he's like, "Sam, go back. You cannot swim. What are you doing? You can't swim." And Sam just keeps walking towards the boat to the point where he's now in the water. And he goes to the scene where he's been engulfed by the water now. And his hand is up and he's almost like content to die at some level. And then obviously Frodo reaches down, grabs his arm, pulls him into the boat, and gives him this bewildered look like, "Why would you come out into water when you can't swim?" And he said, "I made a promise. Gandalf told me to make a promise." And he said, "Don't leave him, Sam. Don't you leave him, and I don't intend to." Sam settled into his role as an auxiliary helper to the point of death. So he found himself in all the same situations Frodo was in as the main character. Sam is in, but he's got a different lens. He's got this patient expectation of what is going to happen, in so much that he begins to ration food at one point. And Frodo's like, "Why are you rationing it this way?" And he says, "For the trip back." He's so sure that they're going to be successful. He believes in what Frodo can do. He believes in the cause. And he says, "I'm rationing this so we can have food coming back. We're going to be successful." Experience works hope, and hope makes not ashamed. You know, I had this time where I really was struggling with the cold. It was inordinately cold this past winter, and we had some really insane temperatures. And I live in kind of the heart of Oklahoma City. And so there's a lot of vagrants, there's a lot of homelessness, there's a lot of disenfranchised people that you see. And I remember just driving home each day thinking, hopefully tonight nobody's outside. These are going to go into negative temperatures and hopefully nobody is outside. But it would not let me go. I was just troubled by it, and I didn't have any money. I was just thinking to myself, "God, I wish I had money. I wish I had money. If I had money, I would build a big house, and I would buy a big place, and I wouldn't charge anybody to come and be there. I would go get people and I would pull them in," and all these things that I started saying to myself, knowing that there are people that do these types of things, that make efforts to do these types of things. But I was just so passionate about it. And I was like, I wish I had the ability. I wish I had resources. And I was talking to one of my friends and I mentioned something about that. And she said, "Just go take them whatever you have. Go take them what you have." And I was like, all I have in here is these blankets. But I was thinking, what are blankets? What are blankets really in such cold temperatures when you're outside? What is this blanket going to do? It's not going to do anything. I just felt so inadequate. But I prayed about it and talked to God, asked him to bless the situation. And I felt like God said, "Yeah, go put those blankets in your car and go drive around to see if somebody's outside." And I thought, nobody will be out. It's way too cold tonight. They're going to be at some shelter or some place. But I got out and I got in my truck and I loaded it up with the blankets that I had in the house. And as I'm driving around, sure enough, I started seeing people. I'm like, that's crazy that they're out here. So I'd hand a blanket out, try to do what I could. But then I ended up pulling up to look like an old financial building. And it had kind of a breezeway that they could be in. And I looked and I saw 4 guys huddled up in this breezeway. And as I was praying, God said, "Pull in there and give them the rest of these blankets, the rest of them that you have in your truck." And there were 4 guys there, and they were huddled up together for heat. And when I got out of the car, I grabbed the blankets and I started walking over to them. And I felt so stupid. I felt silly thinking, what are you doing bringing blankets to these people outside in the cold? They need somewhere to be at. And as I'm walking over there feeling so stupid, I get closer and there's this man. He pops his head up and he looks over and he taps his buddy on the shoulder and he said, "See, I told you God would take care of us." And he said, "Thank you so much, brother. Bless you. I was just telling him about what God would do." And the other guy was just shaking his head. And then it began to dawn on me the perspective that this man had. He's out here in the cold, but he's obviously lived enough life to understand that God always shows up despite our circumstance, despite the fact that I didn't come out there and bring him into the house. If it would have just been me in that situation, I can think of how maybe I would think that a real blessing would be somebody coming to get me, changing my circumstance. But this guy is in the freezing cold, homeless with nothing, and testifying to his buddy that God's going to come. And upon seeing me show up with just some blankets and negative-degree weather, his lens said, God has provided yet again. And they didn't all rush to the blankets to try to take them from me. They both divvied them up, and there were 4 guys, and they wrapped each other closer. And they drew in closer so they can make it through the night. A rising tide raises all ships, and until we understand that, you cannot win. That's the thing about it. Frodo tried his absolute best. But here's the thing, though. When I say he was never designed to win, because I can say all these beautiful things about Samwise, but the truth is, if Samwise would have been holding the ring for as long as Frodo did, he wouldn't have won either. It's not about this character or that. It's about the position, realizing that you are not the main character. Your job on Earth is as lower lights to help people and point them back to the main character. If we can do that, we can orient ourselves to a place of helpfulness, searching and trying to find ways to be a benefit to each other. And a rising tide will raise all ships. We will win. To stay in the driver's seat is the concession of loss. To stay in the driver's seat is you saying, I will not win, because it wasn't designed that way. God made sure of it. Scripture says we're given this gift in earthen vessels, that the excellency of the power might be of God and not of us. God designed that no flesh would glory in his presence. I've tried to be as authentic as I possibly can in doing this podcast. This is what God told me. When you speak, be authentic, be real, and whatever he puts on my mind, I want to try to say that. And so this next part may make some people uncomfortable, but it is what it is. But whenever my ex-wife came to me and told me that she was leaving, obviously I'd never been in that situation before, and obviously I never thought it could happen. So I didn't really know what to do. I tried my best to be faithful. I tried my best to be hopeful and to think, well, maybe this will not happen. If I lean in, if I try to pour into my marriage, if I lean in, maybe this will not happen. And so I start trying to lean in, and I recruited my family to pray with me. And I had a buddy, Drew. You guys know me and Andrew hang out a lot, and he had been sent to live in Colorado at like the time frame of all of it was like exact. He had been sent to live in Colorado, where I lived at that time. And before he was coming out, I said, hey, I have to tell you something so when you get here, it's not awkward for you. I said, Taylor said she's leaving, so I know you're going to be ended up spending a lot of time with me. I don't want you to be here and be like, hey, what's going on? I just want to make sure you know about that. And the very first thing he said was, oh, no, we're not just going to like sit here while that happens. He said, we're going to fast. And I was like, that's really cool. You know, he said he's going to fast with me. I thought that was amazing. And it wasn't just him saying that we were going to fast together. By his desire and according to his word, he said we're going to fast every week. And so this person who is not actually dealing with this battle fasted with me every single week like clockwork. He fasted with me. And fasting, if you've ever done it, is difficult, especially if you are fasting for any period of time. Like it's a difficult thing to do, even whenever it's you that has the need or the question you need answered from God. This man was not a part of the situation, but he would come to my house, and he would just be there, just to be a bro. And we would sit out in these lawn chairs as we just looked at things like the skyline, or the other sunrise or the sunset, not the skyline. And we would just talk about nothing. We just make each other laugh. And if you know Andrew, you know he likes to go home early and go to sleep. But he would stay at my house late, just talking, just sitting there. And I knew that he was staying there for me. He couldn't hold the burden for me, but he could hold me through the burden. And that's just what he did consistently. And when I tell you that got me through that trial, it got me through it. I honestly don't know how I would have gotten through it had he not been there. Shortly after I left, he ended up moving back to Indiana. But he was completely aware that my job during this time is just to be a Sam. I'm just supposed to help you. I'm just supposed to help you. The reason why I'm harping on this is because it can be really, really tricky. It can be tricky. Because if you're the main character, you don't know it, But in that moment, you're highly susceptible to deception, highly susceptible. Because this whole entire time, Frodo thinks that he's taking the ring to Mordor to destroy it. That's what he believes. He believes he's taking it all the way through all these fights, these battles, these hungers, these fears, this treachery. He thinks he's doing this in service to the actual cause to destroy the ring. But we can see when he gets there, he does not destroy the ring. If you pay attention at the beginning of the films, it is highlighted that the ring wants to go back home. And it will conspire, it will do as much as it can to get itself back home. So Frodo, whether he knew it or not, was being used by both forces at the same time. The forces for good to go forward, the willpower, the fellowship of the ring and everybody trying to get him to the spot, but also by the ring itself saying, hey, the closer I get there, the closer I get to being back home. He's literally taking me to the eye, to Mordor. Idolatry works that exact same way. And all idolatry is the worship of another god. Whenever I'm the main character, before too long, I'll stop taking my orders from headquarters and I'll start taking orders directly from myself. And I will sit myself firmly in the seat of God in my life. And I'll begin to practice idolatry, not knowing. Because I'll give myself really good reasons. I'll give myself really good reasons. We could talk about this all night. This has already been significantly longer than any other episode that we've done, but this is something that I really felt really pressed on. And so thank you for taking a longer amount of time to listen. And if anything offends you, as always, just know that you tuned in. Thanks. Talk soon.